We're going to invite Jeff Henley and Joe Lombardo to come up and talk about Greece implementation that they kind of started this summer and what they're looking forward to do this year. And they made it on their trip, thank goodness. Yeah, come on up, guys. This is awesome.
I don't think either of us
All right, just a quick shout out to table number 2 over there. Very good.
No, it counts up on the for it.
Joe Lombardo and I work together at Greece Central School District. I'm the Executive Director of Instructional Technology and Strategic Initiatives, which really this kind of falls under both of those plates. It is instructional technology, and how Greece plans to use it really is going to be like a strategic initiative in terms of APPR and all of those other things. We came down on a whirlwind tour. Was it 700 miles in a day, right? We came down on a whirlwind tour. One day we flew down in the morning. We visited Riverhead, Amityville, William Floyd, Sewanaka, and then we zipped back in the car and got in a plane and went home. So it was a full day for us. And then the very next morning we had a presentation to Cabinet to explain what we had seen. So our superintendent, Barbara Dean Williams, asked us to come down here and do some research on how the schools here in Long Island were using this. She had heard about some of the great results and said, you know, let's figure out how they do it. And she asked specifically to check what they're doing about on-time interventions. Very important, and we'll talk a little bit about this we call learning recovery in just a minute. And it's pretty simple. The plan is to provide students with the credits that they deserve while maintaining the highest level of engagement with their learning. One of the things that we saw while we were touring was that students were highly engaged in the learning, even though I'll never forget the one girl that we saw. She was on a 6-month suspension. I think it was at Amityville, wasn't it? And she said, she had to go back to class the next day.
It was her last day.
Yeah. And she goes, I don't want to go back tomorrow because I don't have to show off here. I get to learn at my own pace. I have a teacher here that I can ask questions, and I can do it on my own time.
She was like the old man in the Shawshank Redemption who's getting released from prison and doesn't want to leave.
Yep.
And wants to rob the store to get back.
Yeah.
That was her. Yeah.
So we didn't practice this, by the way. This is what we do. So we had the students that we really focus on in our model. We call it our re-engagement center, and there's some different sections to that, and I'll explain it. But we focus on these kids. We focus on kids who need accrual credit, our disengaged students, suspended students, homebound students, credit recovery, and learning recovery. Back in the fall, Commissioner King presented these slides, these next few slides, to the NISCUS, their winter meeting. And obviously the tax cap, if you look here, the projected revenue down the road, this is what the tax cap is doing to us, and here's our projected expenditures. Obviously what this means, and we're not sharing anything new with you here, we have to find new ways to do business. And scenario 3 was really what Commissioner King was focusing on, redesigning schooling to improve processes and outcomes and sustainability. And this chart is what has kind of stuck with me all year. I got hired back in September, and I remember seeing this chart when my superintendent took me down to this meeting and thinking, this is really what the future is for education in this state. With our current, if we put more spending on focused improving teacher effectiveness, we'll get some increases. However, but if we focus on technology-based learning systems, we'll see increases even higher. So this is the kind of the basis of everything. Luckily, due to the strategic initiatives, part of my job, my superintendent sends me lots of conferences. I was an avid yesterday in Philadelphia. I'm going to Ithaca in a couple days. I get to go to a lot of conferences. But I went to see these 3 individuals last year, and they really kind of helped solidify what we came up with when our learning recovery process. Rick DeFore, you all know who he is. He's the PLC guy. We've already talked about PLCs in here. But one thing he says, he talks about is having a how does he put it? A guaranteed and viable curriculum. So that no matter where you are, no matter what teacher you have, they are teaching the same thing at the same time. Now, they may teach it a little bit differently, but that's the whole purpose of a curriculum. Because when you sit down in your PLCs and actually try to compare, it has to be apples to apples. Because if we're teaching apples and this guy's teaching oranges, it doesn't make any sense. So we can't use the data effectively unless everyone's following the same standard plan. So keeping that in mind, I'm going to move over to Doug Reeves. Doug Reeves is, and you guys know his work too, most likely, he's the power standards guy. And to have somebody who kind of says, okay, you've got your state standards, you've got the Common Core standards, it's time to put these standards together and create some very basic standards that must be met in a certain time period. And I'll show you how that fits in a minute. And then what really kind of changed my life, and I talked a little bit about this in the one breakout session, but I got to go see Mike Matos, who wrote Simplifying RTI. And he talked about a formula, an equation of learning. And that formula has a constant and a variable, like all good math formulas do. And he said that the constant throughout educational history has always been the time. We've always had about 180 or so days to teach. That's always been the constant. He said the variable has always been how much the student learns. That's really been up to the student. He said, and that's not the way, and he went through every statistic in the book about why, how is this is not fair to the kids. It comes down to the teacher finding ways to reach all students. And he said, we've got to flip it. It should be, the constant should be the learning. Every student walks out at the exact same place in learning. The time might be different. We all have a place to get to. How long we take to get there is really, it could be up to the kid, which is why this program, and when we went through and did the touring, it really started to click. And taking those three individuals, putting them together, we have kind of created what we call our learning recovery process. And in order to do it, we've got to follow what they say. We have to complete an aligned and regional curriculum, which is what we are doing right now. Our regional BOCES is creating a curriculum for all of the schools in our area that is based on New York State standards and the Common Core. What we're going to do then is take our curriculums and align them to that so that we're meeting all those power standards. We're also going to create, just like the new module that you guys just introduced today, create a Gantt chart to determine exactly where we should be, pacing guides, whatever you want to call it. And now that I see you're doing it, it might make our jobs even easier. So I swear I didn't know you guys were doing this until we got here today. And then we've sent all of our teachers and all of our administrators to PLC training so they understand the process of the PLC. And this was to the Rick and Becky DeFore training that they do a lot of shows around the country doing that one. And then we also sent teams to, like I had mentioned, the RTI training as well. So hopefully everybody has an idea of how all of these things fit together. And these are some of the key beliefs. It's really not about teachers, and this is one of the hardest things to get through to teachers who have been doing this for a long time. They think they've been doing PLC. It's been PLC diet, as we like to refer to it. It's not about teachers, it's about kids. So if all of a sudden you're sitting in a PLC and one teacher says, well, my data shows, or no, the data shows that I'm better, or my students do better at teaching this standard, or at learning this standard. Why don't you give me your kids and I'll teach that particular unit? That takes a lot of trust, but if a PLC is running and all full 8 cylinders, that's how they should work. It takes a while to get there, and trust me, we're not there yet either, but we're working in that direction. But also to do this, you've got to think outside the box, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the creativity and things that we had to do to try to get to this system. One of the first things we had to do, and thank goodness we came down here and toured and checked out these schools, we learned a little bit how to extend and add time to our day. Because as you know, with all the training and everything that's coming down, there just isn't enough time anymore. So what we did, like several of the schools down here in Long Island did, we asked several teachers who were already identified to be our re-engagement center teachers, to come in an hour and a half later in the morning. And then they would stay contractually the same number of hours everybody else has to stay, and they would be here an hour and a half later in the afternoon. And it's during that hour and a half that we bring our students, and I listed the students earlier, those students would come in during that hour and a half and do the work on the computers, or it might not be with Right Reason technology, it might be just working one-on-one with a teacher, but it's that whole re-engagement center uses technology as well.
And Jeff, the teachers that we have doing that, what was nice about when we saw what was going on in the districts down here, they're not necessarily the high flyer tech teachers and the ones that are using Twitter and all. It was just the right teachers personally to engage with these types of kids that are going to be in this program, our re-engagement center.
And just like anything, it's about making those connections. If you can identify, and you know who they are, you identify those teachers who can make connections with those kids, the kids that are disengaged. Find those teachers that can make those connections. So if our belief is that a student can achieve credit in this state by getting competency or mastery in any one of the standards, then this system works. The key is, just like a railroad track, anytime that there's a switch, these little switches that are on the side, finding out who the person is who identifies the student who is going down, this is path B, would be the typical, normal, traditional path. There has to be somebody who identifies that's a kid that needs it. There has to be some kind of red flag that says, this kid needs to go off onto path C. You've got to identify who that person is first. It could be the principal, it could be a team of people. Then you have to identify who actually flips the switch. That's a key thing too. Who actually has the power to change the schedule? Who has the power to identify who they are? And there's going to be a few other logistics I have to explain here in a second. The mechanics of this process really took most of the fleshing out that took us a while to get to it. And then, of course, there's the New York State regulations. In New York State regulations, if you read it closely, it says that, let's see here, let me go to the next one actually. The panel that will decide the makeup credit program must be a teacher in the subject area for which the student must make up credit. If you're a lawyer and you read that, what does that's explaining it, should tell you something right away. The state is allowing you some leeway here. What kind of leeway are they allowing you? So remember, you have a panel of people who are discussing who's going to flip the switch, who's going to take that path C. All it says up here is you need a teacher in the subject area for which the student must make up credit, a guidance director or other administrator at minimum, including the principal as well. What doesn't it say? I'm going to do a little Common Core. What doesn't it say here? That particular student's teacher, because that's one thing we ran into. Some teachers say, and again, this is we're trying to get to that point of it's about the student, not about the teacher. I will not change that student's grade. I don't care what he does on this newfangled computer program system. I will not change that computer's grade or that teacher's or that student's grade. Well, you don't need that teacher there. The state regs are very, very clear. All you need is a teacher. And in some cases, hopefully certified in that area to understand what's going on. So in many cases, we pulled department chairs. We can pull teachers who are not even in that particular person's building. It doesn't say you have to have that teacher. So there are workarounds to any of the obstacles, but you have to kind of read the regs to see that. We did, by the way, clear this personally with Commissioner King. So this was, we had a little meeting and we talked to him about this and he was like, yeah. And by the way, he's very supportive of this whole blended learning model. He is, in fact, when I told him about Right Reasons, he wrote it down on the back of my business card, and I don't know, has he contacted you yet or not? I'm not sure. The other problem is if teachers say, well, this is a computer program, it's not really New York State aligned. And then you throw words like psychometrically aligned at them, and they think, oh, okay, well, and you are. You've been certified by the state to do this. So you are psychometrically aligned, you meet the state standards. This program is just as good as any other program. And if we truly agree that every single kid who meets the standards, and we believe if you meet a standard, if you are proficient at it, that you should be able to graduate, then why would a teacher be able to stand that way? We believe very strongly in Greece that every kid who gets through this can be able to do what they need to do in life. All right. I lost my clicker. So, how do we do it? The drill down process. At the 5-week point, all right, Mike Maddow said, and I mentioned this in the other group, so some of you have already heard this, that a good GPS system will tell you right away if you've missed a turn. In fact, we were on the way here from LaGuardia. I picked him up at LaGuardia, and he had the GPS device, and he's like, okay, it's telling you to go right. Do you want the green line or the blue line? And I was like, I don't know, pick one. He went with the blue line. We got here on time. And we didn't miss any turns, so it was actually pretty good. No, we did. We missed one.
We missed the first
we
turn.
Did we missed the first turn. We did. And
right.
we changed it. We immediately made a correction, and we weren't late. We got here on time. But if we had missed that first turn and kept missing more and more turns, we would have been very late. So why do I mention this? Well, and again, I said this in the last group, so I apologize. I thought I was a great teacher. For 11 years, I taught social studies. I had 95% plus passing Regents exams every year. But now I look back on it, and I've seen this. I've seen the big thinkers and the minds out there in the United States making tours right now that are saying things like that I should have given some of those 5%. I should have given them more time. I should have done other things to help these kids through. So I feel like now I wish I could go back to be a teacher because I feel like now I've learned so much more. But the first process here is you find that F right away at 5 weeks. I used to call parents and say, yeah, your kid's failing. It's the 20-week point. Well, how long has he been failing for, they say? Well, he's been failing for about 15 weeks. Why wasn't I calling home at the 5-week point or even earlier? I should have been doing things quicker, and I wasn't. So 5 weeks in, you sort the grades. You pull your SMS up. You sort the grades. You pull the kids who are failing. You pull the kids who are in danger. You find out what classes that they are failing in. Where are they on the pacing chart? And I'll show you the pacing chart in a minute. Which areas students not meeting standards in. And then you work with the people who Right Reasons have given you at your district, the liaison, to create the curriculum based on the standards. This is what they need. Then you let the student work on it to gain competency, and then you replace the grade. We've had some teachers that have said, yes, we'll replace the grade. We believe in this system. We've had others who said they won't. So we just say, fine, you don't. So we send another report card home that looks identical to the Greece report card. And it just says this is the learning, or the, not the learning recovery report card, but the re-engagement center report card. Twilight Academy, because it's in the afternoon. And we just say that this grade will replace the other grade on June 24th. So there is a date that teacher no longer has control over that. And that's and we make sure we're in direct communication with the parent that they know that grade will be changed. Okay. So this looks identical. This is actually off of a different company that is out there right now, but this looks identical to the one that you guys are doing, and that's why we're thinking we're going to talk to you guys a little more now. This is using this. You can see exactly that they're failing the first 5 weeks. You can look in here at those dates. You can see what should have been taught. Then you can break it down further and go into the curriculum, find out exactly what units were taught at what time. Let's say they failed the first 5 weeks. Let's say it takes them up to about 1st of October there. So we know that Unit 1, Unit 2, here are the sections. Let's say they failed just Unit 2. So then we go to the Right Reasons liaisons and we say, please just put up Unit 2. We'll have that student come in during the Twilight Academy, and they'll redo Unit 2. They already have the seat time. Their seat time requirement is met. So all they have to do is make up those standards, and they're done. Become proficient on this curriculum. For learning recovery, as I just mentioned, the referral has to originate from someone. It could originate from the principal, the student's teacher, a guidance counselor. Usually the guidance counselor is the one who's the one who sees the need to do it first, because they're checking all the grades of all their kids. Then the academic recovery team meets. They meet regularly, at least every 5 weeks. And their job is to look at the referrals that are coming in at the 5-week, 10-week, 15-week point. Then they determine, based on the information coming in, exactly what it is. They drill down into the data. They see this is the standard or the unit the kid needs to redo. They actually could make that decision and put them in, which was called our Bridges program. That's going to be the Twilight Academy now. And that's where the liaison helps set up the prescribed program. Student makes up the work, and then the student never stops going to the class. The student continues going, but they also do this. Once they're done, RTI, if you really look into what it's not about getting into Tier 2 and staying in Tier 2. It's about getting into Tier 2, getting back into that Tier 1 again. You want to try to get back down into the green level. The academic recovery team could also deny Twilight Academy for whatever reason and put them in a support room. So there's multiple options there. And then it's revisited every 5 weeks. We keep looking at that kid to see if they're back in trouble again. We can help them out again. Credit recovery, our credit recovery plan is basically the same as any summer school. I was a summer school principal too, same kind of process. Kid already has a seat time, they just get the entire curriculum. And all of these models I can show you where you can look at these flow charts here on our website in a second. But same thing with accrual students coming in from other parts of the state, other parts of the country who may not have met certain requirements yet. We can do the same thing. We identify what parts they are behind in, and we put them into the right curriculum. Suspended students, it's the same as everybody here at Long Island we talked about. We identify what time period they're suspended from. We look at the units that they have to complete. We put it on, and they do it during our Twilight Academy in a separate location on campus. And last, our homebound students, exactly the same process. We identify how long they're going to be out. We make sure that that stuff is uploaded for them, and they're able to complete it from home. And that's it. This is, I'm sorry.
Could you tell which one of us was the administrator and which was the teacher?
This is on, if you want to get a copy of the flow charts and the step-by-step process, it's on greasetechnology.wordpress.com. So you can get a copy of all those flow charts and see how what we did, a step-by-step process. All right. Thank you.